All right, you should probably start hearing me now. So we're going to go ahead and get this thing started. All right, what's up, YouTube? Good to see you guys again. Today, talking about one of my favorite subjects is selecting summits. I get quite a few questions about this, so it's kind of worth going over because there's such a variety out there for everybody. Right now, a couple quick announcements. There's a huge fire raging by my house on the mountain just right up here, and they actually kicked off another one nearby. So it's actually enormous. It's long overdue to burn down. It's unfortunate. The good thing is there's not too many structures up that area, so hopefully everybody's okay that fights that fire. But it'll be a big one. The entire cloud or sky is pink and full of plume. I got ashes raining everywhere. So welcome to Southern California living. Actually, all of California living. It's a tinderbox for sure. So on that, obviously you guys noted that we're here now. It's a different day of the week and time. We're trying Mondays at 6 p.m. This was based upon some Twitter polls. At the very last minute, I think Tuesdays eked out ahead by maybe one vote. There was a poll done there. I might look at this poll and try it again as we continue to evolve on this. But Mondays at 6, it's my day off, so it's kind of easy to get to. However, the ironic thing was there's a whole lot going on here at the house. So anyways, Don, KK4QAM, good to see you in there. Dan, N9BAV, Fort Worth. All right, cool. Good to see you, Dan. And Danielle. Let's see here. Who else is in here? Piqued your interest, Brett, huh? Well, SOTA's a blast. It's a whole lot of fun. And just like a lot of other people would say about the hobby, be careful because as soon as you get into it, it's kind of addicting. It's fun. It combines a whole lot of things in one. This is just one sliver we're going to talk about tonight. Reed Lehman, gearing up for your first activation soon. Hey, Reed, let us know when you plan on going out and where you're from and your call sign. That always helps us. We can keep a watchful eye for you. And if there's people in different areas, maybe they can make sure you help get spotted and also make contacts with you depending upon how you activate. So that's one way. Also, K8JLW, by the way. All right, Reed, good. And where are you at? Reed, are you in Minnesota where Mike tells us there's no summits but then found an 8-pointer? So what's going on, Mike? Enjoyed your last little video streams as I was working on the Suburban. So it's always good to watch other people. But yeah, Gabe, in the house it's 90 degrees. Well, I'm in my garage and it's 90 degrees. I have both fans blowing on me. I had to kind of knock it down a little bit. Guys, give me an audio check. Let me know if you guys can hear these fans. But it's literally like having a blow dryer in your face. It reminded me when I was in the military and I was in the Middle East and Kuwait. Felt like somebody just throwing big grains of sand at you and hitting you right in the face with a blow dryer at the same time. So it's not pleasant right now. We're going to make the best of it. So Lynchburg, Virginia, tons of summits nearby. Absolutely. In fact, I hope to get out there one day. And lots of good questions coming in there. So let's see here. Let's go into the actual stream now. Couple of things. Give me a yay or a nay if you like the timer intro. Kind of give you enough of a tickler to get you out here. If you need more time or less time, let me know. And also, if you want music in there, music seems to be a point of contention with you guys. So just let me know if you want a little bit of elevator music or something to keep you busy. I thought maybe not, and I just turned the audio all the way down. But anyways, that's all the announcements I'm going to do with today. So I'm going to get right into this. And after each slide, I'm going to check the comments. That way I make sure that I get what you guys are looking for. So let's do this. All right. So today's topic, summit selection. Get right into a couple of the overviews we're going to go through. As the weather, obviously like today, it's 100 million degrees. We're going to talk about how that plays a role in, and by the way, disclaimer, there's lots of different ways to pick your summits. I'm just kind of sharing with you kind of the thought process that goes through my head and what I think about. Not every single summit requires this much in depth, and some summits may even require more planning. But this is just kind of a snapshot overview, and I'm going to go into a couple of these topics here. But I am going to talk about weather. I'm going to talk about distance, and that'll make sense here in a few minutes what I mean by distance. Point values, I'm going to explain how to figure out the point values of certain summits and also, of course, what the bonus points are. I'm going to go into sotamaps.org quite a bit because I want you to kind of understand that program, or I should say that database on the website. We'll do some live interaction here as we're going. And I'll kind of talk you through some of those boxes, and I'll make sure I answer your questions on that the best that I can. What else we got going on? Also, access points, ingress, egress, how do you get to a trailhead? How would you pick your trailhead? How do you get to the summit? Kind of talk about that. And that can splinter off into a million different directions too, but I'm going to just kind of talk about a couple of key things in the access points that I think you should be aware of. You know, in the last live stream I did, I mentioned physical limitations. I said SOTA can be done by anybody, and I still stand by that. However, that doesn't mean even I'm capable of climbing K2 or some other peaks, because just the technical aspects behind it, the equipment, the gear. I'm not a rock climber, not an ice climber. So clearly I would have to bone up on my training there, make sure I'm good to go, and also understand how to work all the equipment with that. But there are summits to choose from the Summit database, and that's kind of what I mean by your physical limitations and some considerations there. Remoteness, some different logistics involved depending upon how remote of a peak you decide to pick. Some things to consider, especially with this fire going on. There's no water up there, and that's a big reason why this is burning all down. So some of those kind of things will come into play. And then, of course, spotting considerations. So those are some of the things that we're going to go over in this right now. I'm going to check your chats real quick, make sure I haven't missed anything. Michigan, what's up there? Oh, Michigan, not Minnesota, I'm sorry. Let's see here. Hey, if you can't activate, you can always chase and do parks on the air and some other things, so that's good to go. And it is hot outside, yes. It's just hot outside as it is in my garage right now there, Gabe. No fan sound. Oh, good. That's what I needed. That's what I was actually looking for, too, because I have to have them blowing on me. These earbuds are definitely helping out. So it is clipping. Okay, let me fix the clipping because I want to make sure that everybody has some sweet audio. So let me go to that just a little bit, bring it down. All right, tell me if that's clipping right there. How about right there? Is that clipping? Or are we good to go? I'll wait for a few seconds because it takes a minute. So hopefully that's not clipping too bad. Should have knocked it down just a little bit for you. Yep, my girls are watching. Gotta love my kids. You know why? Because every time they fired up an Instagram or a different live feed themselves this week, I jumped on there and I was saying hi to them, and they paused me. So they're paying me back, I think. And obviously Haley's in there, and she got to go out and play along too. Let's see here. Yes, other digital modes do apply. FT8, those kind of things. Just nothing through a repeater. All right, so that's too low. Oh, good to know. Good to know. All right, let me bring it back up then. All right, how about right there? Is that better? I want to make sure I get this right for you guys, and then I'll leave it there once I get it there. Still clipping, I can barely hear you. How about now? Volume's not an issue now. Okay, so I don't know what I can do about the clipping. That might just be the way I peak out. I am kind of a loud voice, audible voice. I'm talking loud enough because these are plugged in my ears. So I'm going to roll with that unless you guys absolutely are opposed to it. Oh, okay, I got two people telling me good. Excellent, thanks guys. All right, let's move on into the presentation again. Let's get back to that. All right, so first point that we're going to talk about is the weather. By the way, these are in no particular order. These are just kind of things that I put down there to consider. But for me, when it's hot out, I like to go to one of two places. The beach, where it's a little bit cooler, and there's no summits there, but that's one place I like to go to. Or I like to go to as higher elevations as I can get to knock down those temperature degrees. I don't remember what the formula is, but I think it's something about 2 degrees for every 1,000 foot of elevation, or somewhere around that time, that formula. So it's 100 degrees or so down here where I live in Corona, about 1,400 feet. I like to get up in the 8,000 to 10,000 foot range in the summer if I can. But for me, bottom line is the higher I try to go, the hotter it is down here, because it's just I can't handle it. And when it's cold, I like to go anywhere. Now, anywhere with the exception of what I was talking about with like K2 or any of those big peaks where mountain prep requires specific training and gear, ice climbing, ice axes. I even learned that lesson this year, and I'll talk about it a little bit later on about some different gear that I needed to get, just micro spikes, for example, to make sure I didn't go all the way down the hill, because I did have an issue there. And then lightning. At the end of the day, when you're all done playing SOTA, everybody needs to go home. So safety is always first in any of this. You got to weigh your own experience. You got to go with somebody more experienced than you if you need be. This is how you can gain experience. Just kind of take some baby steps and incrementally work your way toward bigger, deeper, longer peaks and hikes. So this is something to keep in mind. But don't be Ben Franklin. Don't get bolted by lightning with your big antenna up in the sky. So I'm gonna check back to my comments here, and we're all good. All right. I'm making sure that I'm staying with my comments after each slide. You see that little period there at the end? That's telling me check your slides, because I kept blowing past the comments. I mean, check the comments. I keep blowing past them. So moving on to the next subject, distance. For me, this could be distance from your home location. How far do you want to drive? How far are you willing to drive? In my particular case, I've put it out that my goal is to reach Mountain Goat which is the 1,000 activator points by hitting a unique summit every single time. And what I mean by a unique summit, that means that a summit that I've never activated from. So I have to go to every single summit until I reach Mountain Goat will be different. That means I've hit a lot of the local ones near me. I'm driving further and further and further away to reach summits. Now, good thing for me, I haven't hit every single summit near me. There are some 1 and 2 point peaks. You know, some of them just the juice ain't worth the squeeze, as they say, because that's a lot of work for 1 point. I've done some of them. When I did the Palm Springs one, I'll link that video over here somewhere. The Palm Springs one, that was one heck of a hike for a 1 pointer. The one I did with Josh was a little further, or not a little further, about the same distance maybe, or a little less, but it was longer than I thought for a 1 pointer. So just because the point value is less, don't underestimate the difficulty level in that point value. So just kind of want to keep in mind of that. But distance, how far are you willing to drive from your QTH? If you're going to do multiple summits, you know, when you pick summits out there, if you're going to do multiple ones, you might want to look for a string of summits in an area where you can access pretty quick so you can stick and move. You want to get in and get that peak activated, you know, set maybe a predetermined amount of time on the summit, either till you get 4 or, like I told you, like to get a few more, maybe 8 or 10 contacts, and then you move off, or maybe you're going to be there for an hour because you got to stay on track to keep going. But what's the point of activating the summit if you can't get the points for it? I mean the 4 points, 4 contacts plus points, in my opinion. Because that's what I'm up there for, is to activate that peak and get the summits for myself too, as well as the chasers. So, but you want to keep in mind the distance from your last summit, not just the hike up to the summit you're activating, but the hike back down to your car, driving to the next summit, up, back down, and so on. Or maybe it's hike up to summit, hike to next summit, hike to next summit, and then back to your car. So you need to kind of look at all those distances and figure out if they're in your ballpark, in your range, and you can do them. So not just the distance in driving, but also the mileage, total mileage of the hike. But keep in mind the total mileage of the hike, if it's flat ground in 1 mile, that could be a big difference if it's completely vertical. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But partner, self abilities, and fitness of others. You know, maybe you're up to running, you know, like Eric I think he's in Minnesota too. He's K0 EAP. He is out doing all these triathlons and stuff, and maybe he's down for running all these crazy peaks and stuff, no problem. But maybe another activator's not. So Eric, if he was leading this one, maybe Eric wouldn't pick summits that are very physically strenuous. It's going to tax his partner on peak number 1, or even where that partner couldn't even get to that peak. So you kind of got to keep that in mind, that you got to look at the group, your abilities, your fitness levels, and that of the partner as well. And then also the vertical elevation gain. Like I said, if it's 1 mile straight up or 1 mile flat, that makes a huge difference in my opinion. And also some of the gear you may want to bring. If you're going to go downhill and it's a very vertical mountain like East Twin Peaks, trekking poles, man, you're going to want stuff like that. You're going to definitely want some good shoes to kind of hold your grip on some of those. Or if you're boulder hopping, like what Kevin, W6RIP, just did not long ago when he went out. And, well, you got to watch his video. I'll link his channel down below. Kevin's my buddy, and I like plugging his channel too. Of course, there's a bunch of you guys out here, and I'll plug you all. But so you got to look at all of those things put together when you're picking your summits to make sure that you don't miss out. And then a good way of figuring out some of this stuff, of course, is estimating these total mileages from the maps. That's something that you need to learn how to do, whether you use a paper map or you use some kind of online mapping feature, whether you use Google Earth or you use what Kevin and I use, the GIA. I call it GIA. I don't know how you say it. It's GAIAGPS.com. There it is. It's always linked down below, and it will be too. I really enjoy that particular thing, that web browser. Non-sponsored by it. It works really good. It's a subscription of about like $30 a year. But it's worth it because you don't want to get lost out there. And then last but not least, I'll probably do a separate video on that if you guys are interested in that, on mapping specifically in GIA and how that goes. So you see the period. It's time to check out some comments here. All right, let's see here. Waving hand, everybody. Kevin's got to go back to work. All right, Mike, all good. All right, cool. Well, good to see everybody in there. Going back to it. Just want to check in, make sure you guys are all good. All right, moving on. I'm using my phone here, so touch it. All right, so summit point values. So this is where we're going to start getting into the map a little bit here, and I'm going to show you how that works. First of all, you need to define your SOTA goals. like I said a second ago, some of these peaks out here, they're 1 and 2 points, and well, when it's 115 degrees outside, I'm not going there. Some of them are just, there's nothing else by them, so if you're going to go to it, you just got to know you're kind of committing that day to it, and you know, with a 100% unique goal like mine, that may work, and that's why I put in there defined SOTA goals. You got to know what it is you're after. You got to know what a 10-point peak means. You want to know about the bonus points. But there are point values assigned, but you need to figure out your own goal within SOTA. Is it to just go to the same 5 or 10 places, or maybe if you activate once a month and you pick 12 different peaks, and then the next year you pick the same 12 or a new 12? Whatever your goals are, it doesn't matter. This probably should be a multi-year event if you want to do the Mountain Goat Award, because, you know, when I first started, I was banging out peaks left and right, and then I really wasn't enjoying them as much as I am now, where I do 1, maybe 2. When I'm going to Washington in a couple weeks with Kevin, we're probably going to do 5 or 6 in a weekend, or who knows, we'll see. We're still planning that out, but the point is you want to enjoy this as much as you want to kind of get to mountain goal. That goal, don't let that goal get in the way of actually enjoying what you're doing, because it's amazing. And it takes a little while to kind of soak in. You're just going to find that one peak you're going to crawl up on. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is what you just want to sit there for a little while. So I hope that stumbles in your mind too. So understanding how determining, reading my thing here, understanding how the point value is determined. So sotamaps.org. So I'm going to jump over to sotamaps.org because I'm going to spend some time in that. Let me check the comments real quick first. All right, everybody's all good? Nothing new. So now let's go into the SOTA Maps website. Here we go. All right, so if you are able to open up a second browser and you want to follow along, I would encourage you to do so. If you want to just watch and do it later on your own, that's fine too. But if you look at this is just sotamaps.org, as you see on the very top of the browser. This is a web database from SOTA, which is in the UK, but if you do www.sotamaps.org, you can see the full URL there. That's all you need to know. So the first thing is, you can see it's a worldwide thing, but there's no data on this map whatsoever. You can't see my mouse moving, I realize. But you want to go to this upper left-hand area where it says SOTA Mapping Project, and just below it, there's this drop-down box. As you see, I'm scrolling now over here. Pick whatever area you are in. Now, look, you can see all these areas are in here. I know where I'm at. I got to go all the way down here to Whiskey 6. So Whiskey 6 USA, because I'm KG 6, and you know that's my zone of the United States. So I pick Whiskey 6. I scroll to the right and I choose my region. In this particular region, you can see all the regions within the Whiskey 6 zone and how many summits each zone has. So you can see California has a lot of zones and a lot of peaks. There's a lot of points in California for sure. The zone by me that I am activating on a very regular basis, if you guys have chased me all, is the CT, Central Traverse Zones, right here. When I pull that up, it pulls up every single peak and the mapping. It's going to go a little bit slow here because I'm pushing the Wi-Fi, I'm sure. We'll let that load. But it's going to pull up every single peak in the zone that is in the CT zone. So those are all 276 peaks within the CT zone. The other thing is, if you look to the left of that box there, you see the map. It'll finish loading eventually. Come on, baby. If you look to the left, there it goes. You'll see all these different peaks, the summit listings on the left. You see all these peaks over here. Now, when they're red, that means they've never been activated. So you look here, and you see 008, and you see this other information box pops out. By the way, you can scroll down. All activations, my activations, how many times I've activated, and the point value assigned. You can also sort this. Just click points. You can sort it ascending, descending. You can also click this. You can say, what are all the unactivated peaks, or the one that's been activated the most? Like Table Mountain in this particular zone has been activated 107 times. It's an 8-point peak. I've activated Table Mountain. I don't know why that doesn't show my call sign, but if I open it, let's see here, Table Mountain. See, it pops up right there. And then you can open up this. But I'm going to do that in a minute because I want to show you a couple other things first. So those are all the different peaks that are there. And then, so let's open up, as our example box, we'll open up Pacifico Mountain. So let's just go by summit code, sort this back by summit code, 0. So I know that Pacifico Mountain is CT015. Now this asterisk means that there is actually KML tracks that you can export into your mapping software in there. There's tracks in there from different programs, whatever they are. You know, as you can tell by just looking at this one, it's not a very used method, but it does provide you information if you're interested in it. Just know what that star means. You can see your tracks are available for the summit. I don't load any of mine into there. I think I may have once or twice. In fact, I might have even done Pacifico Mountain. I don't even remember. So anyways, I click on Pacifico Mountain, and it pops up. It shows you it's in this cluster right here. Now, there's a couple of different ways to zoom in and look at that. I can just look at it in this view. I can select this header Pacifico Mountain, which opens up a sub-browser. And in that sub-browser will be a bunch more information about this peak, including everybody's activation reports over here. And you can see here, I did my trail video on November 13th of last year. You open up that, it goes to my YouTube channel. Some of these may be just a text box. Some of them may go to people's various blogs. It's whatever link that you want to put in there, or whatever just text file that you want to put in there. And you know, like this disclaimer says, they're not responsible for the content of the external sites or links. In other words, hey, you know, if somebody puts something bad up there, don't go crying to SOTA. But you see a bunch more information up here as well. You know, how many points it's worth, meters. You can convert that to elevation. There's all kinds of information up here. Google Maps, Google Earth, OpenStreet. There's different maps you can look at. So that's one piece of information you can look at there. So another thing you can do is you can change, you know, you can change this view over here of a bunch of different ways. Let's see if I'm pushing my, oh, it's working now. Let's change the layers. Let's see here. Not what I'm looking for. Oh, I'm sorry. Off to the left over here. These ones to change your map view. So you can look at it as a satellite map. And it takes a minute to load. You can look at it as a various different topographical maps. And these all change as you zoom in. You can just double click, or down here in the bottom right, you can zoom in, however you want to do it. Or if I go to Pacifico Mountain, I can also just click on center and zoom, and it'll bring you in. If there is a panoramic view available, you can click panoramic, and it will show you if somebody was nice enough to do that. And then you can reposition, and this gives you all this information in here, in this summit box. Just like I clicked on it earlier, on the very top of this box, since you can't see my mouse, is this Pacifico Mountain link, which goes to this page right here that I just showed you. Tells you what region it's in, tells you the lat long, and not just meters, but also feet and elevation. So there's what I was talking about on that. You can see your grid square, how many points it's worth, and how many times it's activated. Points versus activation. So it's worth it. This is a 6-point peak. It's been activated 19 times. And Dan, NA6MGs, one of our local mountain goats, he just activated this thing June 23rd of this year. That gives you some information there. I'll show you just a couple of other maps that are in here. They load up. So you get your little 3D type map. Anyways, you can see lots of different ways to look at this. There's a lot of information in this, and excuse me, you should be looking in the Summit mapping database project right here on sotamaps.org when you're going to select your peak. Because the information is just unbelievable. It's great. You go back to just regular map view here. I like OSM for the most part. All right. So that's kind of how you look around in there. Let me go check comments, see where we're going. Any questions on that yet? We don't have squat in North Central North Carolina. North Carolina, really? All right. All right. Everybody just join us. Welcome aboard. Also, don't forget, super chats are always appreciated. They pop up on the screen. If you've got a question anytime along the way, if you want to do the super chat, there's a little box down toward the bottom for like $1 or $2 or whatever you want. You can hit that. It gets my attention, puts up the pop-up thing, and it kind of contributes to what I'm doing here. So, with that, let's go back to the presentation. So that's a little bit on SOTA maps. Bonus points are for the activator only, and those you can look back into, and you can see when, let me pull up a peak here so I can actually show you what I'm talking about here. Let me pick up, let's pick up Mount San Antonio. In this, you see in this box right here, points 8, bonus points 3 versus, let's pick up something else. I don't know, maybe Sunset Peak. If you look at Sunset Peak, it shows, well, here's Santiago Peak. It opened up next. 6, but no bonus points. So there's no guarantee that there's going to be a bonus point. And the bonus points, like I told you in one of my last videos, are only for the activator. That's the person going up there putting in the work. And whether it's an extreme winter or an extreme summer type condition, that's what those are all about. So let me pull up something here. Even if you just click on the icon, it'll tell you what they are. So when you're planning, you can see here, you can pick routes that are all by themselves or all together. Like this is an area that a lot of us activate on, is along Highway 2 because there's peaks all along Highway 2, as you can see. All right, let me go back into this. All right, we'll probably go more into that in just a minute. So I talked about the +3 in the summer, the winter for extreme conditions. And those bonus points are determined in advance strictly by dates. In the last presentation, I talked about the Association Regional Manual and the specific SOTA manuals. I'm going to put those on my web page. If you want to download them there, I'll put a little page for you. There's a little link for them. They're just PDF files, but they're also available on the SOTA website, like I've told you in my other videos, sota.uk.org, and you can pull them from there as well and search that whole website. In there, it'll tell you each region, the CT zone, who the managers are, and it tells you specifically by dates. And it'll tell you, like, I think it's December 1st to March 31st in my area is where I get those bonus points in the wintertime for those wintertime peaks, and in the summer, the summertime peaks. So it'll tell you all that in there. All right, before we move on, let's go back to our comments here. Let's see here. All right. Check out some comments. Any questions so far on any of that? What is the percentage for attempts versus activations? You know what? I don't know. It doesn't say. If somebody goes up there and they... Well, I know there's been times where people have gone up and they've made 1 contact. They did not make 4 as the activator. When that happens, by the way, so I'm going to explain that. So if I decide to go hike a very remote hill, pick a remote hill. We'll call it Remote Hill. I go and I hike that one. It's so remote that I only am able to drum up 1 contact. That chaser gets the points because that peak is technically activated. However, I am not entitled to gain the points until I've made 4 QSOs. Not just 1, but 4. Once I hit 4 or more, then I get the points. It doesn't matter if I make 100. I just need to make 4 as a minimum. I get the points. I wonder if, and I've never looked for it, if the SOTA database captures, because they would be able to capture it, if the activator actually logged it and put in the 1 contact they made to benefit the chaser. I don't know if that's the case. I think that's an individual thing. If each activator going out and trying to do a summit, they get one contact, do you log it knowing you're not going to get the points? Maybe you should. I've never tried it, but maybe you should so that the chaser can be validated on the back end. But the chaser can also put in that contact, but it's nice if there's a validation on the other side. I don't know if the SOTA management team actually looks for those 2 things like EQSL or something along those lines. So I really don't know, because I think most people that go out and try, if they fail, if they make 1 contact or 3 contacts or less, I should say, and I don't want to call that a failure, by the way, or maybe they don't reach the summit. I mean, at what point do you say it's a failed activation? I don't know. So I don't know how you would capture that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And yes, there are a whole bunch in the western U.S. for sure. We're very fortunate out here. We at least have that, and fires, by the way, lots of fires. All right, so we're going to keep on going now. We go back to the presentation here. Moving on. All right, so sotamaps.org, I just kind of went over that. Choose an activation. Okay, this is where I got ahead of myself a little bit, and I kind of went through all this already, but I'll make sure I didn't miss anything. So peak displays with colors. So let me go back to that real quick because I want to show you that, the color difference. So if I am looking at these things, notice that they're green, yellow, and then you'll see some red ones. Let me zoom out a little bit so you can see a little bit better here. So by the way, if you're curious, I am right here in Corona. So you can see the beach and all of LA and everything. So this whole mountain range right here is on fire. And then it kicked off another one somewhere over here in Chino. There's another fire going on over there. So this is where the fires are. You can see there's not much up there. There are radio towers up there, and there are some of those radar domes for the aircraft. Because the aircraft come in, they land at John Wayne right over here, John Wayne Airport. So that's about all that's up there. And there's like zero water, very dry. It is just a big giant tinderbox. They really built all this in here, but you know, the way there's enough of a buffer, I think most structures should be okay until you get over here by the 74, and then that's where you're going to find some isolated pockets. So hopefully they knock it down. So now you know where I'm at, and now you can start seeing where some of these peaks are. Now most of the peaks I've activated, oh, by the way, I just realized you can't see my pointer. So hopefully you saw Corona, and then you saw those peaks between Mission Viejo and Temesco Valley, just south of that. So where Corona's at, almost center of the screen, if you go to the right where it says Banning and then up, you see that 10-point peak. I'm going to open it up right now so you can actually see it. There you go. So you can see now, move this map over, San Gorgonio, which I have activated, and Kevin activated not too long ago. That is a 10-point peak. It is red. So I'm always looking for red peaks because they're bigger points, and I know that the yellows are 8. But also notice, too, look at the points the way they are. 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, and then 1. There's no like odd numbers that I've noticed. There's not like a 5-point peak or nothing like that. It's almost all odd numbers with the exception of the 1-pointers. So that's interesting anyway. That kind of gives you an idea about the different colors. So visually speaking, you can see that. Now you can change this look by coming over here and change it, show the submit code labels. And then it should refresh that and change those. It might not right now because I'm online. Let's see if it'll refresh that. Hopefully I don't lose it. Oh, and I lost it. So I'll just go back. So you get to see here, Whiskey 6 or pick your zone. I'm going to go back to Charlie Tango, and then it'll all come right back. And now, because I refreshed it, now you can see what I mean by all the CT numbers are attached to there. Which really doesn't matter. I don't usually look at it this way because I know that if I click that, it's going to open up the box anyway and tell me what it is. See, CT009 anyway. So I don't need this extra CT09 on there, but it is a view. It is an option for you if that's something you're interested in. For me, I generally don't do that. You take that off. Well, Seeker, they went away without having to reboot the map. All right, so that's that part right there. Go back to, all right, colors in the region, and then changing map views. I already went over that on how I did a bunch of those. All right, let's check out comments. Make sure I keep in there. All right. Well, let's see here. Yes, they do capture for an activator. It will show as an activation with 0 points. All right, N6DNM, thank you. I had not inputted it that way, so appreciate you helping us out with that. What band have you made the most contacts with? For me, I would say probably a split between 20 meters and VHF. Those are the two top bands for me. I like 20 meters a lot because of the propagation is pretty stable throughout the whole day and night. It's just the most effective band I've found for me. It's reliable, and it has enough bandwidth on there. And the most important thing, I don't say the most important, but one of the biggest aspects of that also is that the antenna requirements is not too crazy. You want to try running 60 meters, or not 60, but 80 meters or 160 meters. Your antenna length is going to have to be just huge, and sometimes you don't have that luxury. You have this little teeny rock to work on, and you're barely working off of that. Next to that would be VHF, because there's a lot of peaks out here, as you saw on the map in my area, that can reach down to this whole very well populated metropolitan area of LA Basin, Inland Empire, and out to San Diego, and on the north side of the mountain range is all out in the high desert. So these mountains around here give you a huge footprint, even on VHF, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit later, more on the VHF side of things and HF side of things. But for me, it's been VHF and 20 meters. All right, I'm going to keep on going here. Let's see. All right. So more of this continued. Click Summit link for info. I showed you guys that already. I showed you, that's another thing, activation count. So when you looked at that one, like Table Mountain, it said it's been activated 107 times. There's a reason for that. It's very accessible. You drive right up to a nice big parking lot that has a ski resort. sometimes if the gate's open, you can even drive right up to the activation zone and basically step out of your car and walk a few feet and you're there. I parked at the parking structure or the parking lot, turnaround, whatever point you want to call it, cul-de-sac looking thing for the ski slope down below. And then I walked up about a quarter mile and that was Table Mountain. It's a nice wooded area with plenty of places to hang wire. It's open. It was nice. It also reaches out to the high desert very far, and it also reaches into the Inland Empire very well. So it's a very well used activation zone. So that's probably why you can see that one activated so high. And that's a clue to you that, you know, on the other side of the spectrum, if it's red and it's never been activated, Kevin, you'll watch it later, there's a reason for it. Kevin just went out and did a peak out in the Sierras, and it was very remote. And, you know, there's not a lot of information there because people haven't hiked it. And the information that is there, maybe it's not captured in the areas that he looked or we would look normally as ham radio operators. So you need to think about your resources too. I mean, there's all kinds of, that's why my channel is Hiking with Ham Radio. I'm trying to reach the hiking community because they're just a huge asset to us. You know, people that hike from Mexico to Canada on the Pacific Crest Trail, they're through hiking. Those people hit a lot of these different areas. They're very astute to different paths and trails, the Forest Services. I mean, they just got to look at all kinds of information that's out there. But if there's no information to tell you how to get to that peak, then you need to think about that peak before you go taking it on because you might be biting off more than you can handle. So just something to consider. So the example summit, I went through that already. You saw where it linked to my video, so I'm not going to bore you with that right now. Moving on, access points. All right, one more time, check comments. Any questions so far? Still going strong here, all right. Let me see here. Okay. All right, so back to it. So access points. Public versus private property. When I did Toro Peak, I saw that that was on an Indian reservation. Therefore, I sought out permission from the reservation tribal members. I gained written permission, and I made my access. You know, maybe the peak is in public land, but the best, easiest is a key word, easiest way to get as close to that peak as you can to hike it means you need to get through some private property. You know, first of all, it's the wrong thing to do unless you have written permission. Second of all, it's against kind of the SOTA rules. I mean, the mantra is that you do all of this by all the rules that are in place. No trespassing, those kind of things. What if the peak is on private property? We talked about that in the last video that I did, that sometimes it may be within that activation zone, even if it's just down 25 meters, it could be off by 100 meters laterally, but as long as you're within, it's close enough. But look at those kind of things before you go, but just know that if it is on private property, you've got something to deal with there, and you need to make sure before you go stepping on their grounds. If you go out there and you bump into fences, you might have to call the hike and turn around and go back and do better map recons. Trail versus bushwhacking. So this is where looking on your GM maps, your other regular topographical maps are going to tell you different things about getting to peaks. There may be a satellite imagery. That's a big luxury we have now, Google Earth and satellite images. These are huge assets that we have to go in and find what it may look like. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I am not a fan of bushwhacking. And if you don't do your access points enough, I mean, maybe there's a great trail, but maybe you don't know how to read a topographical map and you stopped at an area and it's straight up vertical and you don't have rock climbing gear, or pick it, you're bushwhacking through, you know, chest deep or overhead high brush to get to the summit. You know, you're just taking an educated guess, so you need to be able to look at those maps and do that ahead of time is my opinion. And you'll see trails that run either right over the top of the summit or real close to it, or you'll see a spur that goes off and up into it, and you'll see a trail that goes that way because, you know, people want to check out summits. There's a lot of times there's summit markers. Also look up on geocaching websites and for that area and see what you find, because there may be a geocache up there. There's a lot of summit marker or summit logs, if you will. A lot of times they put those geocaches in there. So there's different ways to find information on how to get there. Vehicle versus foot. You know, I think I talked about Pikes Peak, basically a drive up. So if you're going to just drive up to Pikes Peak, sweet, go for it. But you may be walking a very long time. So you need to know where you can get your vehicle in. What if it's an open road for a vehicle, but you have a two-wheel drive car and you need four-wheel drive high clearance? Or what if you don't have anywhere to park because you didn't bring your Forest Adventure Pass in Southern California? Another little certain pass you got to have to park in certain areas, depending upon where you're at, if there's any kind of facilities. But so you need to have all these logistics kind of thought out in advance on where are you going to access this trail from, and then from the trail, if it doesn't go to the summit, where are you going to access the summit from? So if a trail, in theory, goes by the summit over here, at what point do you go off trail and get up there? And some of that you may have to figure out on the fly. So be ready for that too. So I talked about the activation zones. You know where and how to get to them, and all this is coming down. You keep hearing me saying the same thing. Is doing some map recons. All right, moving on. Check comments. No questions so far. All right, let's see here. Hey, Dennis. And Mike's in there. Good to see you guys. All right, keep on going then. No questions yet. All right, so physical fitness and technical limitations. So under this topic, let's talk about fitness for yourself, your partner, your pet, your group, your kids, all the above. You may be an absolute marathon stud, and obviously your partner may not, or your pet may not be up to it, or you're planning on doing 3 days, and now you got to load that dog down or that goat down with some extra weight. Know what those weight limitations could be for the dogs or your goats or your kids or whichever. You're going to cross load if you're going to go with a partner. Is your partner able to, like Kevin and I, we go hiking, we both carry all of our own gear, but if we went on probably a 5 or 7 day hike on the John Muir Trail, I'm sure we'd start cross loading stuff, and we probably do like a shared tent, a shared cook kit, and then maybe I don't know if we do a shared radio system or not, take turns so we can bring more batteries. Those are all the logistics that we'd have to plan out to make sure that we had what we need to make it successful, to be safe, and to also not overload ourselves in those areas, especially when you're doing with group or kids or family. And I would say this too on kids. My 14-year-old daughter Haley, she's a monster on the trail. So is Ashley. They both are. They're just awesome. But if you're bringing little kids, which I would highly encourage you to do, you bring in your 5 or 6 or 7-year-old, go for the easy summits. Go for the ones where they can get that success. It's no different than when you take them hunting the first time you take them bird hunting. Why? Because there's more game to shoot at. You take them fishing, go catch mackerel or go catch bluegill or go catch something super easy because you want to get them bit by the fun of it all. It is not about how many points and how far and everything else. It's about the fun and the quality time that you spend with that family member, that kid of yours. That's what I would encourage you to do. And I've picked a couple in the past I shouldn't have, and and my wife was with me, and now she doesn't want to go because I've taken her cross country uphill, poor recon, and it was in the very first days of my SOTA stuff. And when I was out in Tahoe, so I think I was doing SOTA for about 2 weeks. I was all excited, and I just went stupid. And so I've learned from that lesson that I really need to kind of figure out who's all going. And I would encourage you to do the same thing. But you got to know what those limitations are and be realistic about them too. Be conservative in estimating those. Gear requirements. I use the extreme stuff like, out here in California, a gear requirement, a simple gear requirement in California, water. Lots of water. I mean, I usually carry almost every hike 3 liters of water at a minimum for me. And then I bring probably 2 liters of water for Tayo, my dog. And then I make sure whatever I bring for me, my daughter, if she goes with me, each one of them will carry about the same amount. Just simply because I do not want to run out of water out on the trail because there isn't any. If I think there might be water, like when Kevin went up and he did I think it was pallet benchmark, he did it a week before I was going to do it. I haven't even done it yet. It got too hot. But Kevin went out and did that, and he found some water there. That's knowledge that I was happy to hear because I would trim down on the water, but I also want to know where on the trail the water was, and it was pretty soon into the trail on the downhill side. So that means that you're really not saving much in the way of water weight. Maybe I think it was a mile or a quarter mile or something like that. And then the rest of the 8 or 10 miles, whatever it was, you're without water anyway. So water is a big one. In the wintertime, micro spikes or crampons, ice axes. This last season, I slid down a hill. I probably should have had an ice axe. I at least had micro. That's when I went and got micro spikes after that hike. I was barreling down a hill. My dog was 4-wheel drive and watching me and keeping up with me, but I had to reach my arm out and grab about a 3-inch, 4-inch sapling, and it ripped the whole inside of my bicep and all the way down my forearm to pieces. I'm lucky it didn't dislocate my shoulder, get hurt, twist an ankle. That was gnarly, and therefore I went out and bought a set of micro spikes just for that to kind of help out. And that was because I was trying to find a better way down to make the video for you guys to show, hey, this would be an easier way to count, a different access point, because it was cross country up on that hill, and I picked a longer path on the south side of the mountain face, which usually gets more sun in the spring, and therefore it's not as snowy or icy. On the north side, it was all icy and it was shady because that's where all the trees were going. Well, I thought I would drop down the north side because the Pacific Crest Trail ran through there, and I was just going to pick that up and continue around and go link up where I was at. And it sounds good. Lesson learned, though, is it just wasn't ready because it was getting really warm during the day, but freezing at night, and there was nothing but ice under that snow. So once I got a few feet down, boom, I was sliding, and I made it, of course, but it was gnarly. It got my attention, that's for sure. So yeah, ice and snow. So gear requirements, even out in the desert, sun protection, sunblock. Are you a rock climber? You know those little rock, I don't know what they are, rock climbing things, ice climbers. So whatever gear it is, you need to not only have it, but you know how to use it. Even if I had an ice axe, I might have even got hurt because I don't know how to use the dumb thing. I've never tried. I mean, I could figure it out, maybe, but I would want to look into how to use that thing to help me. I ended up putting my trekking poles away because they were just in my way. They weren't doing me any good. So anyways, know the gear you have and know how to use it. Cross-country skills. So this is another technical limitation. If you do not know how to read a map very well and know how to read terrain and just have a general outdoorsman type background, military background, anything that gives you that ability, I would encourage you to reconsider your options on cross-country for a while until you gain those skills. You hear about it all the time. Hiker gets lost here, hiker gets lost there, and you think, well, I got a ham radio. How bad could it be? Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, if you're getting lost, you can get hurt. You can be out there overnight unnecessarily. You can find yourself in a bad area and not be able to get out. Now you also got to tax resources to come find you when maybe those resources could have been allocated towards somebody who really may have needed them more, or whichever. Maybe we only have so many resources to do those mountain rescues. Whatever the case may be, plug your scenario in and don't be that guy, I guess what I'm trying to say. So it's really enjoyable when you know how to do that stuff, and I do. I'm completely comfortable in cross-country travel. There's a sidebar to that is if you're going to decide to go cross-country, be ready to bushwhack a little bit. Now you're stepping in different areas. You could also find yourself crossing streams. But if you have your map, you know how to read it, you're going to be able to see certain things on there. You're going to understand what steepnesses are and terrain contour lines mean and a variety of things. And you know how to kind of play those things. But if you don't have that skills, excuse me, please don't go out and do that until you either get them yourself or you go with somebody who shows you how to do it and you get those skills. HF versus VHF. Let me talk about this. If all I have is a VHF radio, well, let me back this up. If all I have is a VHF radio, how deep into the woods am I going to go? Well, I want to make sure that I can actually reach out to different areas and make contact. So maybe a VHF radio won't be the best option. So maybe that's when I look at HF. Or maybe I need to trim my pack down, so I don't want to bring a bunch of HF stuff. So I usually bring both all the time. This last one that I went out and did, the Sunset Peak one, the VHF, the last video that I released about VHF only on SOTA, it was all about VHF only. Therefore, I left my HF stuff home. And there's times I bring both and I only operate one or the other. But I try to keep in mind that there are chasers maybe in Minnesota, Michigan that don't have any peaks, and they want to get that 10-point peak because it's the crown jewel they just have missing from their SOTA box. And if you have HF, it's kind of nice to at least set up and try keeping the chaser in mind as well. So it's kind of a courteous thing to do, given you have the time and the space and everything works. But think about what you're packing and how much it is. And some people are packing a lot of heavy stuff. So and that's what you have, that's what you do. But then you start narrowing that down. And usually the first place I think people can narrow down weight, well, there's a lot of ways, is the antenna system, though. I mean, I took 3 antennas. I took a tripod and the beam just to have that out there to demonstrate that for you guys. And when I did that, I was like, man, this thing weighs a ton. So I was kind of bummed out about that because it was way too heavy. So just kind of think about how and what you're trying to do with these goals in mind. So let me go back to the comments now. Let's see here. We got a whole bunch to catch up with. Didn't miss any super chats, right? Nope, no super chats yet. Hot, good. Coming down, waving a hand, back to work. All right, so something about a garbage truck. Howdy hand, that's here. Garbage truck up the dump mountain. Oh, yeah. That is funny. A peak they didn't know was a peak that really was a peak. All right. Should I get used to hiking by rucking so I could get used to being better prepared? I would say yes. If that's what you can do right now, to go out, anything you can do to get in shape, why not? Even if you're just, you go walking around your neighborhood. And I find for me right now, walking is better than running. So that's just me. What do you do about antenna setup when operating with two stations at once to avoid interference? Oh, that's funny. If you watched a couple of Kevin and mine videos when we first started doing that, we were blowing out to each other's front of the radio and just different things. So now, when Kevin and I go out, we'll either alternate bands or we'll just kind of let each other take turns. That's one way you can do it, I guess. Kind of plan to work with one another instead of against each other is the best way of going about it. But you've obviously experienced that, and so did Kevin and I, and that's what we decided to do was. And it's kind of hard because if one of us spots, we got it rolling now, and it's easy for the chaser to hit both of us. And then what if you pick up somebody from Italy? I think Kevin did, and I didn't get that one. I just kind of hanging out. So it's just part of the game, part of the fun. How do I plan? How do I plan for wildlife encounters or getting to the summer? We have plenty of rattlers and such here in Southeast. Yeah, we have a lot of rattlers here too. I don't like snakes, and I'll be honest with you, I'm a freaking chicken when it comes to snakes. My biggest concern with snakes, though, is mostly my dog. I have not had her snake-proofed, and the way she stays snake-proofed is I keep her home. And it's 100 degrees out right now. It's hot. They're everywhere. So, but it's just being smart about where you're reaching and stuff with the rattlesnakes and the bushwhacking, kind of steering clear of that, looking for the wider trails. Making sure you have a headlamp if you're going in at dusk and dawn, especially, and you should always maybe even have a headlamp. It's your choice. But, if you know you're going to be in those zones or there's even a remote possibility it's going to be nighttime, even if you use your iPhone flashlight, anything, watch where you're stepping, watch your reach, what you're grabbing. As far as mountain lions and bears, which we do have out here, we also have wild hogs, pigs, Russian boar. Not a lot of the pigs in my area. Those are a little bit more up north, but you bump into those, you're really traipsing around down in some canyons, some thick brush, and what are you doing traipsing around through such thick brush? If you're going to be up on these mountaintops, generally what you're going to be getting tuned from are going to be the snakes, insects like ticks and mosquitoes and those kind of things, which I think everybody should know how to prepare for. By the way, if you don't know, Avon Skin So Soft is the best stuff in the world, in my opinion, for tick and chigger and mosquito repellent. Used in the military. It sounds stupid, but it doesn't burn your face like DEET and crazy things, but Avon Skin So Soft. You can find it, buy gobs of it. It's the best. So, you got to protect yourself against the elements, the sun, the rain, all that kind of stuff. But also, I think what you're really getting at more importantly are the big scary lions and tigers and bears. And, I've been in the woods a lot. They're more afraid of you than you are them, generally speaking. If you're going into their zone, let me take this back. If you're up in Alaska or Montana, or you're going into the big 7 zones, they have those grizzly bear up there, moose don't mess around no moose either. In those areas, you're going to want to make your presence known. You're maybe making noise, carrying a bell. I've seen people walking and swinging a bell around. Make yourself known, and you got. Some people say bring a big giant gun. Yeah, you could do that. I mean, that's it if it happens. We're talking about preventing it. Preventing it is just kind of make yourself known. Generally speaking, I don't have too much issue with wildlife, but if you do and you find yourself caught off guard, you got to protect yourself and you got to do what you got to do, whatever that is. If you got your trekking poles and rocks, man, you do whatever it is you got to do to survive. That's just the way it is. Let's see here. Getting to the summit. This is more around the rattlesnakes. Okay. 10-pointer. That's where you go hunting. All right. Yep. The roll-up J-pole. The roll-up J-pole is I love the roll-up J-pole. Nothing extraordinary. No, it's just an Ed Fong roll-up J-pole. If that's what you're asking there, Curios PC. It is a dual band roll-up J-pole. Different bands work okay though. Yeah, it works VHF, UHF on that. All right, so let's get back to the summit selection. Okay, moving on. Remoteness and logistics. So, the wildlife thing plays a factor in this for me. The steepness of the terrain, the class of the hills, if it's loose rocks, rocky, if you're in flash flood areas, maybe, if you're in, I'm trying to think of not just my area, but I'm trying to think of like all across the U.S., and I guess it would apply all across the world, but, I'm thinking about my country here and how these different terrains that I've been in. I've been a lot in the Pacific Northwest, and I've been a lot in the South, and Georgia, and Tennessee, and Kentucky, and those areas, and of course all out here in California and Oregon and Washington and whatnot. You want to make sure that no matter what you do, you think out as many steps as you can before you go in. So with that, you need to make the hiking plan. And this is something I put on one of my videos not long ago. It's on my website now. If you go there to kg6hqd.us, there's a downloaded form on there, and it's a good template for you, and I think you should do this. It's basically a float plan or a flight plan. You can just download that thing, and then it tells your loved ones where you're going to be, where you're going. It tells the park rangers or the forest rangers, whoever it is that may come looking for you, how to find you, how to get to you, what your truck looks like, or that you have ham radio, or that you have different equipment. You have a tent, you have this, you have that. It kind of tells them everything that you thought of to get to where you're at. So you need to it makes you think yourself through that as well. You leave it with your wife. You can leave one in your truck in case they find your truck, and then they can take it from there. Also, the Wilderness Protocol. There'll be a link up here about the Wilderness Protocol. Know what that is and how to use it, just in case, not just for you, but for somebody else. So think about those different kind of things and use that hiking plan. In addition to that, think about rescue options in that plan, not just for yourself, but what about for somebody else while you're out there? I mean, it would really suck to be a victim, but it would really suck to find somebody out there who needs your help and you wouldn't know what to do to begin with. So brush up on your first aid CPR skills, and also think about, hey, I'm going to a new area that I haven't been to. What's the nearest hospital if they did medevac me out? What about allergies? Did you think about, did you bring your EpiPen or whatever if you have an allergic reaction to bees or who knows what it is? So think about all those kind of things in advance and how you're going to self-rescue or buddy rescue or call in for resources. And then calling in for resources, think about these options right here, APRS versus the spot device and the feasibility of it. There's, of course, satellite phones and stuff like that, too. But let's talk about APRS briefly, because I am a big, huge fan of that. But I also recognize it's not the end-all, be-all. There are places you're going to go into where that little rubber duck on that antenna, or that antenna is not going to do that signal any justice. So maybe you pull the J-pole out, string it up best you can. And then I had the hot-footed hiker comes in here, Matt. He's a local guy getting into SOTA. He wanted me to do a test down in a canyon. And I thought, oh, okay, that's something I normally wouldn't do, but it makes sense. Can I hit a repeater down in the canyon with maybe the rubber duck or the roll-up J-pole? These are all these different kind of things you got to try to think about. So part of the thing I also include is the water availability, but I also include, it'll be up here in a minute. I'll pop it up in just a second. But let's go to the spot device. So APRS is definitely something worth having, because at least it'll track your signal for as long as it can until it loses, or not at all. So if you know where the truck's at, if you did that hiking plan, you told your wife or your significant other, whoever it may be, hey, my truck will be here, expect me home by here. If not, call in the reinforcements. They'll at least know to start there. Maybe there was no APRS. Be careful on your APRS signal, because if you ping it too many times in a given period of time, like I do really remote stuff, I may do one every 10 minutes instead of one every 3 minutes. Bring extra batteries, because you're going to tax your gear on that stuff. So think about that, but you're going to need to think, the deeper you go in, the further you dig into that zone. If you did something along the John Muir Trail and you're 5 days into a 7-day hike, you're pretty far in there. How are you going to get help from there? So think about all those options and what you're going to need to survive. Water availability is a big one. That's why I put that in there, because in my area, that's a big deal. Where Tony's at, not a big deal. A lot of you guys have water all over the place. Minnesota, lakes everywhere. But do you have a system to purify that water? Do you have something to boil it, or you filter it anyway? I'm not going to drink just pond water. You're going to want to filter that best you can, unless you have to, and then you'll deal with the aftermaths of drinking the water from Mexico, if you will. So think about those kind of different things. You got to think about everything you can. So here's that repeater research and programming thing that I want to talk about too. So anytime I go into a new area, and I've been asked recently, what's my repeater list for this area? And I only have, I think, 13 or 14 different frequencies programmed in, not counting the PAPA system. The PAPA system is something fairly new, which I think I have, I think 10 or 11 of those things programmed in now. But in addition to those 13, but other than the PAPA system, there's about 10 or 13 different freaks, and 3 of those are VHF signals, and one of them is APRS. So really I have about 10 different repeaters programmed into my HT. However, if I went to, or when I go to Washington in a couple weeks, I'm going to research repeaters in that area, and I'm going to try to look at where they should cover on the repeaterbook.com or the mapping software, find out where they should cover and kind of get an idea of what I might be able to hit. And then I'm going to either write those frequencies down on paper or put them in my iPhone in notes. I prefer a hard copy of them, or preload them into my HT so that I have them when I get there. Because if something happens, VHF may not get out just on its own on 520, even with the Wilderness Protocol. You may need to get immediate assistance, not wait for that Wilderness Protocol to kick into effect. So you're going to need to find what you can do to get those that signal out, which would be obviously hitting a repeater. So research those things, program them, write them down, do what you're going to do. So you make sure you know what you've got to work with when you get there should something bad happen. All right, so let me get over here to the back to the chat, see where we're at. Let's see here. Oh, referring to the HQD speaker wire antenna. Well, there's a video on that, Curious PC. You can find it in my channel down below, but I'll also link it up here. The HQD speaker wire antenna. Mike will tell you about it. I think he's a big fan of it. Some people bash, oh, the loss, this and that. Here's what I know. It works. It works pretty good. Works great for me. So it's lightweight, small, portable, and it spanks it up on the mountain. So I can't talk about it enough. So let's see here. It's more than not fishing pole measurement center. Yeah. The video's on there. I'd encourage you to watch the video and then put some comments on there. If you're not connected with me on Twitter, by the way, hit me on Twitter, follow with me there, because I am on Twitter like all the time. I'm not going to be on it for this hour because I'm right here with you guys right now, but I'm on Twitter like every day, all the time, open messages a lot. I do a little, I don't say I do, I should say. Really, I think what I'm trying to say is that I kind of kicked up a little bit of a Reflector 12 Alpha on D-Star net, if you will, Tuesday through Friday when I go to work. At 5 a.m. Pacific time to about 5:30 a.m. Pacific time, I'm on 12 Alpha. And then usually about 15:30 to about 17:30-ish, somewhere in there, I'm driving home, and I've got an hour to sometimes 2-hour drive home, depending on the traffic. I'm on Reflector 12 Alpha. And Don, KK4QAM, Gabe, M1 UFO, Dennis 8060M, Kevin W6RIP, there's a couple N5 UAL. There's a few people out there that have been migrating over, and we're kicking up some really good conversations about stuff like, hey, just if you could pick one radio, would you want it to have every feature? We talk about just pie in the sky kind of stuff. We talk about a lot of us are all configuring our hotspots and D-Star stuff, talking about that. So if you don't have D-Star, think about getting that. It's a fun toy. And also, I have a video on that. D-Star or DPRS overlays to APRS. I went specifically with that so that when I'm driving and I'm out and about, my truck will at least lay a track of where I was at for the wife to find me. So everything I've done is for a purpose, all for SOTA, all for trying to have a little bit of a safety net, because a lot of times I'm out there hiking by myself, so I have to think about these things. So that's why I went with D-Star. Probably one of my next radios will be an ID51A++ or whatever it is. I haven't even looked yet. Simply because I don't have a D-Star HT, and it wouldn't hurt to have that. But I am on D-Star. I gave you the dates and times, or the days of the weeks, and the time frames I'm on. I usually put a tweet out on Twitter saying, hey, we're over there. Come check us out. So if you got questions, you can find us there. We talk about anything. Doesn't matter. But, hit me on Twitter for some of those kind of things. If you're building that speaker wire antenna, and I'll do what I can to respond to you right away or find some way to get you the information. Even if I have to do a quick video. I've done that before for some people, where I do a quick video and I just post it right on Twitter. Even if it's like a 1-minute video, it's not worth doing a whole YouTube thing. So I try to answer and be available to you as many questions as I can in any way possible. But to be honest with you, the fastest way to get a hold of me is definitely Twitter. I am on Instagram, but it's a leisurely thing. At Facebook, I reserve for my family and very close friends. So just know that. That's something I just chose to do. And then, of course, a couple other things on this page here. Super chats, if you're into that. Of course, that helps me keep on going here. If you want questions answered, it pops them right up to the top and helps a brother out. So, also, if you're not subscribed yet to my YouTube channel, I hope that at the end of this you find some value in what we're doing and you subscribe and help me out that way too. So, let me get back into the presentation. I just wanted to talk to you about Twitter real quick. If you had some questions on how to get a hold of me super fast. Let me see if I got all that. Let's see here. Steve, what's going on? Good to see you, buddy. Well, add in. I'm sure these guys are going to beat you down with all kinds of questions. Steve is one of the guys, W Golf 0 Alpha Tango. He's the old goat, as you say. But anyway, Steve is a guy that I look up to and a big reason why I even got into Summits on the Air at all. So Steve is definitely mentor, and he's on board. He's in there. So 51A, yep, I know I will, Tony. Good to see you too, by the way. All right, so hey, Brett. All right, I'm going to go right back to it. Back to the comments, or back to the presentation. Let's see here. Scroll down. Let me get to the presentation. All right, back at it. So repeated research and programming. So know before you go to a new area to make sure that you find all ways to make yourself safe and think about everything that you possibly can, to do all your resource checking and everything else. Make your plan, make a plan, work the plan. That's the best thing you can do. Let's see here, moving on along. All right, that actually was the last one. Let me double check my notes. I think we're, yep, remoteness. All right, good timing there. Okay, so with that, let's go to this. And let me see what we've got on any extra comments here. I tried to fit this in within an hour. What time is it? I don't even know what time it is. And I went over by a little bit, but that's okay. So, going on down here. Safety first, exactly. There you go. So with that, if anybody has any comments or questions, you can put them in the chat. We got lots of people in there. Steve, like I mentioned just a second ago, W Golf 0 Alpha Tango. He's all about it. He's a big-time SOTA guy. In fact, he probably went out today. He did a big 14er weekend. You also had to check out his channel. Just check him out right there on his handle, Steve WG0 Alpha Tango. Tony does portable operations in Florida, all kinds of different gear trying out. Tony's a buddy of mine too, K9 ARV Radio. Make sure you check out his channel. Plug a bunch of people's channel here that I can remember off the top of my head. Let's see here. I know that Mike's out there, K8 MRD radio stuff. By the way, CQ, that little thing in there at the end, dude, it cracks me up every time. I think of Wayne's World. So Mike has a unique way of going about things. He's entertaining to watch. So fun stuff right there. Dennis 86DM is another guy that I like talking to. He's out there on D-Star with us. Let's see here. Who else is in the now? Smoking Ape. He just did I think it was you, right, Smoking Ape? You just did the video on different D-Star radios, if I'm not mistaken. Did a pretty good in-depth one. I think he's still working on some of that himself. You wrote that song yourself. Well, that's pretty cool, dude. Anyways, if there's any questions, put them in there. If not, I will wrap this thing up. I will say thank you to all those who came out here and made tonight possible. Made it fun. What the heck, right? It's ham radio. It's good time. But SOTA Summit Selection. This isn't the end-all, be-all. It is just kind of some of the thoughts that go through my head. The most important thing is do your research. Kind of like I said, make your plan, work your plan. That's better than having no plan at all and just winging it, because you're going to get caught short one day. You're going to go up on, like, you could be up on this hill right now right by my house. All of a sudden this fire kicks off. What's your plan to get out of there? What if your truck's on the other side of where that fire line's at? I mean, some of the stuff you can't overthink. I'm gonna admit to that. But you should at least think about some of these things so that you have an idea of what you're getting into and where you're going. Safety of other people, are you in an area a lot of gangsters like to go up and drink beer and sabotage cars and stuff? I mean, that does happen around this area and probably some other areas. Maybe you're on top of a parking structure, right, Mike? And maybe that happens up there too. So, think about all these different kinds of things that you can, and then narrow those down into what it is that you need to actually do as you go out and do your thing. And the other thing too is there's always safety numbers. I mean, I've said it before that I hike by myself a lot. I do bring my dog. She's my extra eyes and ears for the wildlife factor, for other people factor, people and critters. That helps me tremendously to have her. But you know, it's also enjoyable. Just like when I was out teaching scuba and do scuba diving stuff. It's safety in numbers, the buddy system. The military believes in the buddy system. It's always fun, but it's not always possible. I understand that. So if you can, though, you know, take somebody new out. Take somebody out that doesn't know anything about it. Take out a coworker. Find some way to get somebody else involved. You know, I mentioned this and equated it to much like being a Christian, that you should share your faith and spread the good news and, you know, bring people into what you believe is right. Well, that's the same thing with this, in my opinion. That, you know, this is something else that I find great enjoyment in. If you think there's somebody else out there that finds enjoyment in it just like you do, then bring them in. The more the merrier and all this stuff. And I want to end with what Steve just said: family first, then your hobbies. Absolutely. I have got consumed in so many hobbies, and that's why I'm trying to move this stuff around and do it when it does not interfere with that. So with that, I'm going to call it a night. It is 7:15 Pacific time, my time. Thanks everybody for coming out. And you know, 12 Alpha, just like Tony said, 12 Alpha. I'll be out there tomorrow. Tomorrow's back to the grind for me, Tuesday through Friday. So 5 a.m. Pacific time on 12 Alpha for about 30 minutes ish. Sometimes out there a little earlier. And then on the way home, same thing, 1530 to 1700 ish, you know, plus or minus a little bit on the way home. So thanks everybody, 73, and I hope you have a great night.